but that'll be coming. But it takes a team, and everything we do, we can't do by ourselves. And a lot of you out in the audience here have been there for us and helped us with volunteering for the cleanups, for the Centennial, volunteering when we've needed assistance in labor, and we're grateful for that. I just want to thank you. It takes a team to get this stuff done, and we can demonstrate that we can pull together as a good team, and we should be proud of that as a township. We have one more event this year planned. It was something we weren't originally going to do, but we really need to do it, and that is on Sunday, November 24th, at Cuddy Park. We're going to have an invasives plant removal party. We have autumn olive over there, which is the primary invasive that we have. Autumn olive is a beautiful plant. It's doing very well over at Cuddy. About 60 years ago, I remember my dad and I were up on the game lands planting autumn olive because the Game Commission wanted you to do it to help the deer come back. The deer are back, and the autumn olive is doing very, very well. It competes mercilessly with everything else that we have in the park over there, especially in the meadow and around our meadow area. It's competing with the other plants that we want, the beneficial plants, so it needs to go. So we're going to be cutting that out. Jacob's Tree Surgery will be donating and having labor on site and a chipper for us. But we'll be cutting down the autumn olive and chipping out and also some other plants there as well. We're going to be getting together at 8 a.m. At the park. We will instruct on how to recognize autumn olive, so you know what you're cutting down the right thing, and there will be supervision as well. Anyone who would like to help to come along, please do. We can use volunteers. And please wear heavy work shoes and bring work gloves. We'll have some spares and things, but dress accordingly because you will be primarily cutting and hauling the plant material. We will be supplying breakfast and lunch, food. We're going to make this a bit of a little party, kind of a celebration at the end of the year for having a successful year. And our appreciation for those folks that have come out and helped us with volunteering. So there's some of these handouts over by the table. If you want to take one, we do want to know who all is going to volunteer if we can, please. So if you would just, we're using Warren as a collection point. His email is here. If you would just email Warren, jacobstreesurgery.com. Let us know if you're going to come so we have an accurate number, so we know what supplies to have and that kind of thing. If you have saws, hand saws, pool saws, lopping shears, things like that, those will be useful. These are relatively small stemmed plants. We will have some power equipment along, but that's going to be handled by the professionals. Hand tools will work very well in removal. And I don't know, Warren, if you want to add anything more to what we're going to be doing, but
I think you're pretty well covered it.
Okay.
If anybody does want to volunteer, I believe my phone number and email.
Yeah, phone number and email is on.
Like I said, we'd like to know so we know how to plan, how to have spare tools and refreshments for everybody.
Right.
And if people do want to show up and volunteer, it'd be really good if you could be actually there on time so you can get the instruction on. We don't want anybody cutting on the place or anything like that.
We're going to start at 8 o'clock, but you will be supervised through the course of the day. It'll probably take us till a little afternoon, but we probably get a lot done in a couple hours in the morning. But appreciate your help if you can come out and help us. And the other thing we're looking at as we plan forward, we do want to do a cleanup again like we did last year. Last year we did over at Cedar Hill. We cleaned up that hill and all the basins and things in the vicinity. And we got a lot of trash picked up. We also got a lot of good clearing done in the Cedar Hill Park. A lot of undergrowth and things cleared out for pathways. We want to do that again this year. So we're looking if anyone knows of, we have some ideas of our own, but if anyone else knows of any areas that they feel needs to be cleaned up, either stream beds, drainage areas, things that would impact groundwater, let us know so we can get that on the list. And do that. Earth Day this year is in April, as always, and we're in conjunction with the Perkiomen Watershed Conservancy. We want to do at least 1 or 2 removals again this year because we were very successful with that last year, and I think everyone really enjoyed it. So that's it. Thank you.
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
Have you had any interest in the CVS in making a donation since you're improving their front of their?
Yes, we did, and thank you, Terry, because Terry took our promotional package that we've been peddling to try to get money for the park. Terry did take that for us to Dunkin', and we are going to receive a check on Saturday from Dunkin' Donuts.
My question was about CVS.
Not from CVS, not from anyone else. We've not gotten any response from other businesses.
But you're improving their frontage.
And they said customers.
Can they say thank you in the chat?
You guys did a great
Hold
job.
on. It's not their frontage.
That's
It's
hard.
what belongs to us.
It's not legally, but anybody who goes to the CVS enjoys a beautiful park.
We had hoped that cleaning up their front yard would be impressive enough to them, but they've not been forthcoming. But,
That's what messed up the grant. The papers weren't signed on it.
yeah,
Yeah.
so,
And the other question I had was, I know an issue that the park board sometimes talks about is the amount of trash that is on our roads in Lower Frederick, that I don't know if it falls off of trash trucks or people throw it out the window. I mean, I pick it up in my neighborhood all the time, and I know some areas it will be dangerous to go out and pick up trash because there's no sidewalks and there's no shoulder, but is that something that you'd be looking at as a community effort?
well, there's a PennDOT program for cleaning up trash along streets, where they give you signs and instruction, and we've got traffic signs and the safety vests and things to go and do that. If we had people interested in doing that, we could form a couple teams of that and support. You actually claim it a piece of road, and you take responsibility for it periodically, like every quarter you go out and pick up the trash. And then they collect it for you.
Because that's something we
So
don't.
that's an option we can do as a community if we want to do community projects like that, we can do that as well. Thank you. Should I do an introduction? We have 3 beautiful pieces of artwork up here. In July, the Camp Hope approached us, I believe through Marla and then through the Township, and they came to the park board, and on behalf of the park board, I met with the Camp Hope folks and talked with them. They have a group that meets at the camp for 2 weeks every year. It's the Hope, I'm going to get it wrong, the Hope Youth Corps. And for 2 weeks they are trained in citizenry, they are trained in community outreach, community involvement, and this year in particular they decided to spend 1 day doing something of local involvement. So they came to us asking what could they possibly do. I met with Kathy Wetzel down there, who was their administrator, and we talked about what we could possibly do, and I tried to pitch the butterfly boxes and all that things. They wanted to do something that was really meaningful locally. So we talked about, okay, this year is the centennial for this township, and it would be really neat to do something as a gift to the township in commemoration of that. So with that core, we had 40 kids aged 15 to 18. We had them for 1 day, and we talked about what we could possibly do, and we brought them in here, and we looked at the area we have here and what could we do here. So we needed big pieces that 40 kids could work on at one time. And knowing that not everyone's an artist, we wanted to have a mixed media so that we didn't have everyone having to paint and do something that had the interest for everyone. And I'm a mosaic artist, so doing mosaic was a normal thing to do. So we put together the representation of the kinds of things that are important to the township, which is a representation of our natural beauty, the rural character we all talk about and we all value, which is our historical backgrounds, our beautiful green areas, and our natural assets. So we sketched up the paintings for them because we have got kids for 1 day, you got to start fast. And the one thing they really wanted to do was, we saw the flag, and they really wanted to do a depiction of the township seal, our logo, a representation of our township. and re-represent that in a beautiful way. And I think they did a terrific job. You know, we drew it out for them. They really, they did all of the art, the painting, for the most part. We just did, Noel Halter and I, and also Pam Hartman provided some additional ideas, but we drew it out for them. We gave, Noel and I were the two consulting artists, supported them through the day while they were with them. And then we did some finish and final work, just finishing it up. But I think the kids did a beautiful job. And, you know, they donated that to the township in honor of our centennial and to represent the township. And we would like to, the initial idea was to put them up across the front here. We could all be looking at it and all, you know, be happy about where we're living. Hope it gives everyone a good feeling. So that's kind of the background of what went down. I think, I was amazed working with these kids. You never know how much you're going to get as far as talent, but good grief. Noel, I mean, we had a ball that day. It was a blast. So that's their gift to the township.
Mark, if my two colleagues agree, can we send an official warm thank you to the camp?
I agree.
For the donation and how much we appreciate and how, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's why you get paid the big bucks, right?
Environmental.
We had our last meeting on October 28th, and we discussed and started to plan a presentation on stormwater, which will happen probably early 2020. And our next meeting will be on November 25th at 7 p.m. here at the Township Building.
Carol, does that presentation, will that fulfill some of our obligations for the stormwater education? Can you speak to that?
I was trying to hear what you said at the beginning of your report. You're giving a presentation?
We're starting to plan a presentation. It'll be early 2020 on stormwater.
Okay, super. Yes, that can apply to public education participation with of the MS. That's
Okay,
correct.
good, thank you.
New business. Any new business? Public comment. Bob?
Bob Burns at Riverville Road. We brought this up before, it goes back to Metropolitan again. They're over 18 months that they've been working there. We've talked about how the MPC allows us to raise it 10% since they're past a year time period. Is it possible for the board to pass that so that we can get that 10% added, especially before they put their next draw in, which I'm sure comes very soon.
So this is the amount held in escrow, and the NPC talks about increases. I think the first order of business is to ask Carol if the amount that the township holds in escrow presently for that project, if she can take a look at that to determine, to recommend whether you proceed to have the developer increase that. Probably, Carol, I expect you don't know that answer off the top of your head.
I would be happy to take a look at both the terms of the developer's agreement and how that would be increased, and also then if that relates back to the MPC and a review of any updates to cost, I'd be happy to do that as well.
Yes.
Hi, Amy Sachs, 6 Little Road. Question, not question, but the Reynolds property, that idea of, you know, we're in a situation where we're concerned with the budget, looking at raising taxes, and yet we're considering a possible purchase of somebody's property to put a trail on. It's just something I think we need to think about, as we have a lot of folks who are obviously very concerned about raising taxes. I think we need to be a little bit more mindful about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't believe it's a purchase. I believe someone else is putting forth the money, not the township. So I don't think it would cost the township any money, but we would benefit from it.
Would it be me? would it be a maintenance fee across time?
I do not know. I mean, if it's just left as is, there would be almost no maintenance. That's the beauty of open space.
So it just be we wouldn't pave it, we wouldn't maintain it, we
I
wouldn't.
don't know. Is there anyone
Right.
here who can speak to that?
I'm just going off
We
what
have-
county
I think
stuff.
there's someone in the back who can speak to that.
Phil Smith, I actually had brought that to the attention of the township, the Reynolds offer to engage the township in conversation about that property. And I just want to point out that we had, as a planning commission, made it pretty clear that we would be looking at grants, to fund the, any kind of purchase, if you will. But the improvements themselves, are probably very minimal, as, Supervisor Hexer put out. It's probably going to be a, not the kind of property that you would have high maintenance, such as a, property that would have a ball field or something of that sort. It would probably be a small trail of some sort. And again, as I said, you're probably looking at using some funding sources in order to be able to acquire that if we need to go that far. But it's still conceptual at this point. There's a lot of discussion and meeting and decision-making before we ever take that step towards that end. And the playing field may change, the county may come up with a program that helps us fully fund it or whatever, remains to be seen. Okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ernie Schmidt, Silverbrook Drive. A question, you're looking at hiring a new employee for your public works.
Yes.
And what class of CDL are you looking for?
The
Class 3?
Yes.
And what would be the anticipated salary?
I don't know where, I don't think we ever discussed it. We could discuss it,
How much?
we could discuss it and let you know. We didn't really discuss that.
Yeah, but I mean, to get a CDL driver today, it's not something you're gonna pick up for $15 or something.
No,
I realize that, but would you be interested in a man coming here that would be able, a Class 3 CDL is a little bit easier to acquire because it's basically air brake knowledge. Would it be okay to hire a person and have him get his training done in a period of time if he didn't have a CDL? Or do you want somebody CDL qualified when you hire them?
I think they should be CDL qualified right now because winter's here
No, I realize that.
for the
I
snow.
mean, it's been a long time since I got my CDL, but I didn't have a Class 3, I went higher than that. But
The test is really hard now.
yeah, well, I know all the fire drivers,
Well,
they had to get it several years ago. They didn't have it before, but the state forced them into getting their CDL, and they worked out a special program, but you can't do that with your employees. So at least I don't think you can.
No, it's, you're right, the fire company got a break on it like the state guys did.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And, but yes, back in the day, I had really wanted the firemen to have their CDL
Right.
because it was always that doubt with the law today that, if somebody gets out there and there's an accident, they're going to ask, who qualified you? And they say, oh, the government said the chief could say, because I was training a lot of the guys on the
Right.
trucks and the pumps. And I said, I don't want to be the one sitting in the court if this truck kills somebody, And they say, well, he trained me, And I had the CDL, but they didn't know they were driving, so but they'd all have it now, which is,
Yeah,
it's the way it should be.
right, I understand. Okay, thank you.
All right? Yeah. I'd like to congratulate all the candidates, all 8 of them that ran for the supervisor position. I want to thank you, I think it was a great job.
I'm going to add to that, in particular, my 2 colleagues and at least one other former supervisor, 2 other former supervisors in the audience, is being a supervisor is a thankless job, as you all know, right?
Yes. Yes.
People want a lot from you, you know, they don't get it, they complain, you give one person something, another person doesn't get what they want, and anybody who stands up to supervisor to put in their service, that's something. So, that one, we should thank our public servants. They're not doing it for the money, let me tell you. Yeah, so thank you.
Brian?
Brian Helen, and Sigmund Mill Road. As regards to the budget, I would implore the board to consider those things that they are considering or potentially considering cutting. Police services cannot be something that we cut. The road maintenance, we cannot cut. These are, we harp about continual speeding in our township. The state police will not temper that, not on our local roads. So looking at that is a definite no-no. When we consider what Mr. Embry has brought forth to us and the potential increase that hasn't even occurred for the last 3 or 4 years, we're talking potentially an additional $300. When you calculate that out per day, you're looking at 83 cents a day. That is less than a cup of coffee that we all like to enjoy from Wawa. So I would really consider the things that we want to cut, the things that we can't cut are those things that help this community be safe and to be drivable. As regards to comments and concerns about the building, there has been many times where I hear expenses being raised because we're going to increase the school, we're going to increase the school taxes. That is a misnomer. The current trend right now is that our schools are declining, and we do have a representative in leadership in one of our schools in our school district that can truly comment on that. Right now, if I understand, we're something like 225 children less than we were years back. So that decline is going to continue with regards to the type of people that are coming into our communities. The average household that used to have 3 children now are having 1 or less. So again, these are going to be issues that I think are the information is incorrect. So we need to make sure that the information that we are stating is correct. But again, I would implore the future board to make sure that we're not cutting things. Understandably, we have a deficit and we need to consider how we do our budget. But we need to make sure that we're not cutting our nose off to spite our face.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Not? Motion to adjourn. A vote?
Aye.
Aye.